maybe you also have quite a bit of interests and don't know how to pick from so many options when you don't know which one is going to be the right one. Friends and family don't necessarily need to support you. Something always has been impossible until someone came along and didn't know and just did it anyway. All right. So, yeah. Today I wanted to talk to you about my last 2 years of struggle. I've been trapped in a cycle of motivational bursts, ideas that I thought like, yeah, this is finally the thing that I do want to do. And then planning it and getting so deep into like the nitty-gritty for 2 weeks. Start to plan what I'm gonna talk about, start to plan what the content will look like, and maybe even start creating it, just to realize after like a week or two that it's work. Because anything that you don't really want to do probably will feel like work, and work has become the definition of activities that I don't like to engage in, or at least not all the time. Let me try to explain. The other day I had an interview with Grini that is actually up on this page, and he said something so simple yet so valuable that has stuck with me, and that is, there is a time to work to pay the rent, and there is a time to work to actually fill your heart. And if you want to exchange the word work for create, well, that may as well work. And work. Fact is, us humans always want to create something new. And while my ideal version of a life in imagination is to be lying on the beach and to always just hang out with friends and family, to be able to travel wherever I want, it's always been about money, because money needs to pay for all that stuff, right? And so what do I do to sustain myself? 11 years ago, I started a hospitality management degree based off the little prior experience of work that I had, which was a winter season in Switzerland. I was just fresh out of high school, so I was like, yeah, cool, I'm gonna do that. Working a relatively low intensity job, what I thought was gonna be low intensity and eventually was not at all, but was gonna exchange it for like a good time. It was a give or take. But so off this experience that I've had in like, okay, hospitality kind of gives me the flexibility to travel and see places while earning money, while doing things that I like. And I hadn't wasted another thought on other jobs that would potentially do that. So I just kept with that, and I did the hotel management degree for 3 years, and off I went. I need water. Okay. All right, so where were we? Lately, I've been realizing I'm way more of a creative than I thought I was. But then I also really like systems and psychology and theories. And at the same time, I really like sports, but I also am interested in nutrition. And maybe you also have quite a bit of interests and don't know how to pick from so many options when you don't know which one is going to be the right one. And yeah, spoiler, there is no right one. I mean, there's also no wrong one. It's just, there is no way to find out which one is the right one before doing it. You simply need to choose one and keep with it, and then see if you like it or not. And if you don't, well, then just stop it and change again, And if you do like it, well, ding, 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 you've hit the jackpot. And now you're doing something that you like, that you've chosen to do. So there is a time to work/create to pay the rent, and there is a time to work/create to fill the heart. So if you are in this kind of space where you have so many interests and you don't know which one to pick from, I strongly recommend you think for a bit, sit down and just like let your thoughts flow. What were you enjoying a lot when you were a kid? And what of the things that you enjoyed back then do you still enjoy today? Do you have new hobbies? Do you have new interests? And what of those interests are you potentially particularly good at? Okay? And that's your starting point. There's really not much more to it, because you won't find out how much you like it or dislike it until you actually start advancing with it. And in my case, that is the podcast that is up on this page. I've been thinking about making something along those lines for about 4 years. And then I actually started producing it 2 years ago, only to have the files, like 2 interviews, sit on my hard drive for 2 years, just like thinking about how I was going to do it and how I was going to all put it together and like merge it with this idea and this idea. The difference now is that I act. I'm starting to bring out more and more of the videos, and that gives me a sense of calm to actually be advancing with the things that I simply creatively want to explore. So I've learned a lot about this managing a social media page for a coffee shop here in Madrid, and I learned from scratch after having worked in advertisement project organization for about 2.5 years now. And it's just all about getting the mind space to actually have more creative room to explore with the time that you now have. Meaning, you want to plan the next week ahead. You have read it so many times by now, but it is that simple. It's about what are you about? What is the core message? Which feeling, emotion do you want to transmit with your content? And obviously, you're kind of doing this to sell something at some point. So like, what is it you want to sell, and how does it relate authentically and transparently to the topics you're going to want to talk about? What is a problem that you've had that you now want to fix for someone else because you fixed it for yourself? You now know how to solve it, so may as well solve it for others. And that's literally what I'm doing here, and I still don't feel fully capable. It's just such an abstract thing to say, like, hey, I now understand how to grasp an idea, decompose it to a point that I know in what direction I want to go with it, and then act on it as to get today done. And then I get tomorrow done, and then I get the day after that done. And then eventually you'll have the room to have a whole week planned, and then you'll have another week to invest more time and more creativity and more research, because every time you'll get faster at recognizing the things you like, you'll get quicker in editing, you'll get better at refining what you're talking about, and you will get a more flowy approach to that entire process, on top of eventually creating your own language through it. Like, obviously you're not going to start out making content and it's going to look like the cool content that you're admiring from other people. You're going to have to do the things that you think you want to do, and you have to see them and accept that they're not as good as they could be yet, but you just thinking about how they're not as good and how good you want them to be will not make you better. What will make you better is trying and failing and advancing and growing from it. Which actually brings me to my next point, that planning and strategizing are your friend. But at the same time, be careful to not fall into planning procrastination. I've spent hours in which I sat down and organized the way I want my feed to look, and like the way I want this and then that to come out and then that to come out, only to spend so much time in the vision of it that like when it was time to actually create it, I felt overwhelmed and scared to not be able to hold up to it. Whereas now I'm thinking, okay, what is achievable? What can I make? How much time do I have? And what is realistically the amount of content I can bring out in a week? Okay, and we start from there, because consistency itself, however spread out it is more important than sprints and then death, and sprints and death. Because if you keep consistent at something, even if it's every 2, 3, 4 days, you will get some kind of momentum. The algorithm will sort of accept you. God knows what the algorithm is thinking, but apparently that's how it works. At least that's how I've seen it from many people. And yeah, so just keep at it, a realistic pace, and try to find something that you're actually passionate about and that you could be working on for X amount of time. But at the same time, you can change. You can change at any moment. I got so stuck up on the idea that I needed to keep doing this because people know me for that now. Like, keep changing if you want to change, but also stay with something long enough for it to get the opportunity to grow. And just because you're doing one thing doesn't mean that you're not all these other things. Yeah, none of us are only the thing that we work in, or that we create, or that is our hobby, or God knows. I am so many more things than the conversations I've had with the people. And I am so much more than discovering what I want to do with my life to actually have a good time while living it and actually fully exploring all its possibilities. I like to cook, but that doesn't mean I need to have a cooking channel. And I like to jump rope, but that doesn't mean I need to give you jump rope exercises. It could be something that eventually flows into the brand because it makes logical sense at the point that it arrives at. But just let it be one thing for now. Not because it excludes all the other things, but because it gives that one thing the opportunity to shine bright enough to actually reach the people that are looking for it. Friends and family don't necessarily need to support you. They don't need to understand what you're doing, and they also don't need to be thriving for what you're thriving for. You can be passionate about whatever you're being passionate about and try to grow a business, become a dancer, become the best chef, launch your clothing brand. But that doesn't mean that everyone around you is gonna be as obsessed and intrigued by all of its little details as you are. I personally like to share what I'm working on and what I'm passionate about, sometimes so much so that when I'm telling people that don't really give a damn, they demotivate me. They demotivate me on something that I am so deeply passionate about, but I go home thinking it's not as great just because they don't feel the same about it. And this is the sign that you need to forget about friends and family being your target audience. But fact is, if you like something, the probabilities are very high that someone out there as well will like it. It may be more niche, but there is someone out there that will be excited about the same things as you are. And you need to be able to believe in your idea enough that when everyone tells you that it's not gonna work, that you still believe it's gonna work. Because the difference is you sticking with it because of the belief that you have. Something always has been impossible until someone came along and didn't know and just did it anyway. I've been fearing a way of bulk working my content, and I thought it wasn't as authentic or as real if I work on things in advance and have them planned out. I couldn't be more wrong because my most creative ideas, or the ones that I've enjoyed building the most, came from the free time that I've carved out for myself due to bulking said content. Sitting down for 2, 3, 4 hours and actually focusing on writing about one topic or one idea, or literally taking the footage that you already have and just edit the hell out of it however it comes to you is a freedom you carve out for yourself if you already have that next post ready and you can now be like a little child playing around, which actually is what I did with this video where I'm like walking down the stairs and I filmed that, I don't know. And there it sat for 3 months on my computer, and I knew that eventually I was gonna sit down with it and take a look at it and play with it, but I needed to have that creative space of, I already did work that is going to pay my rent. I don't need to worry about that anymore. I already did the work that will bring out content on the things that are priority right now. And now I have room to create whatever comes out of me when I can freely create. Obviously, that creation is a priority in itself, but it won't be possible in the same extent if I'm worrying about how I'm going to make it till the end of the month, or if none of the other content that I'm wanting to bring out has been taken care of, right? So it's a difficult balance to learn. But again, it's a balance that you'll figure out for yourself once you actually start doing the things that will take you forward in your project. And you'll realize what are the core important parts, which is like kind of secondary but more fun. And eventually, ideally, you'll notice that the more fun things come more easily to you and can be a core part of your brand. Whee! But for now, we're trying to be seen. We're trying to figure out a way to bring out content consistently and to a quality that you deem defendable. Like, I don't want to just put out stuff to put out stuff. I want to put out things that I've worked on with dedication and that I consider good. And sometimes good is 70% your best. It's not 100. It's better done than perfect. And that's something I'm still accepting sometimes, but just let it be. Like, obviously you can rework that draft, you can rewrite the text, you can redo the long form, and you can re-edit that video. But how about you just bring it out, see how people also react to it, and then notice what you would have done differently for next time. Is something specifically resonating with the people that you want to be resonating with that you hadn't anticipated before actually bringing it out? So a long form can have a certain topic inside of it that you can re-grasp on and rewrite later on. Like, we're in the baby shoes of this. Just hit it, do it, push it out, make mistakes, fail forward, grow. Grow is the literal core aspect of the idea that we're trying to pursue. We're just wanting to get better. It was on my mind for a couple of days now already to film somewhat of what this video has become. And even though I would like to wing it fully, I felt like I needed some key points to even know what it is that I want to be talking about. I have no clue if I touched on all of them. I kind of like went through them over there, and I feel like I've said what I wanted to say. And this is definitely not as good as I want it to be, but this is where we're at now. And if I've helped you in any way, then yay! And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through the comments or through any social media direct message. I link the channels down in the description. And until then, I hope to catch you here for some more interviews with interesting people that I do have lined up. I'm so excited for the next few weeks to come because something has unlocked in March and we're going for it. So you better buckle up because we're going to the moon and never back.